Hey, good morning, everybody. We are here for a website 101 on the Divi Builder. Today we're going to cover essentially what the difference is between WordPress and the Divi Builder, or how they work with each other. We'll look at what the Divi Builder is intended to do and how it does it. And it does it in several different ways. We're basically going to talk about the back end and the front end of the builder, because there's a back end builder and then there's a visual builder on the front end. And then we'll kind of go over like how the builder is structured within the pages, and then the types of elements that you can add to yours. Again, please feel free to jump in with your questions, either throw them into the chat or throw them into, or just speak up and talk to me about it. We're doing a series of essentials and basics on web page building. And so I'll be sharing my screen today and showing you a sample site that I've set up. But before we begin, I am going to put into chat a couple of our resources. Reminder that the Lean Wisconsin website for web service right now is the temporary home of our go-to for resources. There is a little bit of a Divi 101, but it's included in an image piece right now. So I'll be adding some text resources, and then the links to the YouTube channel and other resources are in there. So as we create more of these trainings, and anything that Anne had created before will all be linked to from this website service. So we'll go with that. And with that, I am going to start sharing my screen. And I'm actually going to share, where is, oh, seriously, Microsoft Teams, you are going to try to do everything for me, aren't you? Let's see. Yep, screen one. Okay, sharing that. Okay, I'm going to put my little video over here. Okay, so what I have up, does everybody see this Wisconsin? I'm using the WVLS page, but I've literally called it the ZZ Divi demo page. Does everybody see this? Give me a thumbs up or a quick verbal. Look good? Awesome. Thank you. So this is what I have done is I have cloned the WVLS web page, homepage for our demonstration today. And I'm going to take this and we're just going to mess with this as we go. This way I won't mess with the actual WVLS page, which is probably not a good idea. Before we dive into actually doing that, I do want to give you a couple of resources that you can look at later. Getting started, the Elegant Themes Divi documentation. So Divi is a theme that is built on a WordPress website. So all of us have WordPress as our essential basic website builder. The Divi theme is the visual format that takes a generic text-based website and adds in all of the beautiful elements that you see when you come to a web page, whether they be fonts and colors and images and all of that. The Divi theme is a little bit more advanced in that it is actually a builder theme. It creates an interface that somebody who doesn't have a lot of training in code or any training in coding or HTML, CSS, any of that, you can still build a website fairly easily, but a fairly complex and actually has tools to do a very complex website without having to know the HTML and CSS. So the theme is, so the Divi theme is unique in that it actually has more than just a boxy interface for certain elements that you would build within. It actually has a builder tool set built into it. There is documentation on it specifically to the Divi builder. I will copy and paste this page into the chat today. So this is the Divi builder documentation and getting started with the Divi builder. And the visual builder breaks it down to how the theme actually works. We're going to break this down on our own page so you see it, but I want you to take a look at this first, which is a generic page that shows you the back end of the Divi builder for building pages. We use the Divi builder for not for posts, not for blog posts, but for building pages and elements in our website. So the home page, the about page, our programming pages, all of these are built for most of the part on our websites on top of the Divi, using the Divi builder. What the Divi builder does, and this is a really sort of good place to see it, is it takes elements of a website and blocks them out into blocky pieces. And I'm going to try to use my terminology careful. Blocks of information. The blue that we will see is a section block, and a section can contain multiple rows, and then within the rows, the green rows are black modules. So a blue section contains one or more row blocks, and then within that row block, you can have one or more module black boxes. So the section organizes rows, and then the rows organize the different actual modules or pieces of elements of design pieces that go onto your website. So it is very much a mathematical model in that you can take a section, a big square, divide it into smaller linear squares like rows, and then within that you can have multiple, usually up to 4 different images across. And so this graphic right here kind of lays that out very neatly in that you have a section that is containing a single row, and then in the top one, it has a call to action as a single module. Directly beneath it, you have another section with an independent row with 4 blurb modules underneath it. So we'll see how that actually looks in a second on our page, but this is a really good visual for that. Here's another visual that is when you want to get into working with images, and those that participated in the image session, and we will have another one. We talked a little bit about this, where again, you see the large individual section box of your Divi builder. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different rows. And then this shows how mathematically it divides it up into different arrangements of modules within the rows. So you can have one large module across. You can divide it up into 2 image modules, or any module. They were using images in this example. You can have a 3rd column each with 3 images. You can have a 1/4 column. Or then you can do some more, it gives you some more arranging options to do a module that is 2/3 of your column plus 1/3, or 3/4 plus 1/4. And then there's a few other arrangements beyond that. But basically, if you start thinking of Divi as a way of dividing up your page into different boxes, and then those boxes are divided by the width of your entire web page, that's going to give you a pretty good idea of how the Divi builder is organizing information on your page. So with that, let's take a look at the Wisconsin Valley Library Service fake homepage. This is a copy of the homepage, and we have on the back end, this is the back end of the Divi builder. This is what you see when you first log in and you select your pages and you come to this. This is what you would see for any page. If you've done a really good job on this, you would see that you've added some titles on this to give you some clues as to what that information is. But you see the large purple page here outlining with Divi builder. This is the contents of the entire page within the purple. The next subsection is a section. The subset is a section. And this blue section, in this case, contains a single row. And then within that is a single header item within a module. So this one's broken down into this. And you can see right here, this one takes up the entire width of the section module here. Within that page, now we have a second section down here with another row module. This, you'll see there's some more divisions here and some different options. This one is only currently using a text module that is taking up the middle section, but there is room to add a module on either side of this. So if I were to click on this row piece here, it's going to tell me, oh, this row is divided up into, it looks like mathematically, it actually probably is half in the middle and 2/4 on either side. So when you choose a layout for a row, you could have it laid out in any one of these options. There's an advanced option, and almost everything I tell you here can be more complex. There is a different kind of section editors that offers you some different, more options, we'll just say for now, for how you can lay things out. But keeping it simple and keeping it basic, this is what the standard Divi builder is going to offer you as far as divisions. So you can have up to 6 little modules in here. That's going to get pretty darn crowded, especially if you're talking about the mobile access, because each one of these modules starts to lay out differently when you're talking about a phone or a tablet view. A lot of these modules end up being vertical rather than horizontal, so you have a lot of scrolling when you have that. But you can see that you have a lot of options. This one is set up to just use that middle. It's either half or, yeah, I think it's half in the middle. Then you've got another place to add a module right beneath that other text module that's not currently being used. Then we have another row within the section that has Ancestry, Novelist Plus, Gale Courses, and Libby. Anne did a really good job in building this, where she labeled these on this end. And then she has another row with a button underneath. Oh, this looks great. What does it even mean? This is not what you see when you come to the website. So for a second, I'm going to come up here and I'm actually going to try to do a half and half view here. Let me pull this up over here. So now, if you're looking with me, give me a quick thumbs up. Are you seeing a side-by-side of the Divi Builder backend on one half of my screen and then the WVLS homepage on the other half? Looking good? Okay. Just double checking my stuff. So what we have on the left side, again, is that back end, and you can see the sections, the rows, and then you see the module for featured post. And here on this side, on the right side, you actually see the live version where you have the row with the featured posts. And then we scroll down and we've got text, which in this case actually says, what can we help you with? And your resources included in your WVLS membership. And now we have a row with this. And now this is all a dynamic. It's going to automatically reshape how things are arranged based on the screen that you're looking at. And right now we shrunk it down to a half screen. So it took it and it made the modules into a box rather than into a row. If I were to expand this, now you see it automatically goes back. And this is where the Divi Builder is really nice because it is very dynamic. It responds to the size of the screen that it's being viewed on. Again, when this comes down to viewing it on a phone screen, it's going to layer the things vertically rather than trying to squish them down to tiny, tiny, tiny little pieces horizontally. And so Divi does that all for us. And all we need to do is decide on the shape and size that we want to build within, and then put the information in. What is a little deceiving, like here you see this View All Resources button right in the middle. Well, if I go back to my editor, what's weird about this is now you see on the back end, this takes up it takes up equal amount of space with this row and the button as this row with all of these, all of the image and links for the different module and the different resources that are on the web page. So that's where things can start to get a little confusing. It is not proportional. What you're seeing on the back end builder is not going to be proportional to what you see on the front end builder. And that's why a lot of people would prefer to build and work on this front end piece of it, because you actually see what you're working with. Here, you don't see any of the images, you don't see what size they are, you don't see them, you only see them proportional to each other, and each module block and row are basically the same size. The section stretches as you put more rows into it, the row stretches as you put more modules into it, but beyond that, everything's the same size. At the same time, knowing the backend builder can be very useful, because sometimes you need to get in and figure out the content of one thing or how that structure is. Here's the example around the button, and again around the text box that we just looked at. We see on the back end very clearly that there is room to add modules on either side that are currently empty. But on the front end, when we look at that again, it's hard to understand. It's hard to understand that there is space on this front end to actually add modules on this side. So it's really a good idea to train yourself to be able to understand both the back and the front end when you're trying to add another element. Just to know that when you see this space here and here, we can add a new module, we can add a new element, but when you're looking on the front end, it doesn't necessarily imply that that's already built in there. I'm gonna pause for a second. Any questions on the relationship between, well, on the builder backend and the relationship between that and the front end? So I'm going to grab a quick screenshot here. Just grabbing our participant list. Welcome everybody, if you weren't here with us at the beginning. Okay. So as I said, most people like building on the front end because it is the visual piece of it. And to access the front end builder, you have a couple different options. You can either go in to build on the front end from the back end, or if you happen to have the page open that you want to edit, there is Enable Visual Builder up at the top. So both of this, build on the front end and Enable Visual Builder, mean the same thing. They are going to take you to the front page builder. So I'm going to click on Build on the Front End within our within the page itself on the back end of WordPress. I'm just going to overuse the terms front end and back end. Okay, yes. So then we're going to take a look at what this looks like on this page. What we see is what we get. It's a WYSIWYG editor to a certain degree. We now can see this actually does show us, again, that we do have these extra spaces for the new modules. It just sometimes is easier to view that and see that on the front end of or on the back end of the website. What we have here, we do not have that big purple box because we're seeing the entire web page for what it is. So the purple essentially is these three dots at the bottom, which at this point, it will come back down to how this works down here. But at this point, this is the purple controls for managing the editing of your page. But what we do see as we scroll around is the blue boxes and the green boxes. What Divi has tried to do, and what is not one of my favorite things about Divi, because mouse control is key. You have to really be able to control what your mouse is doing in order to really work with the front end editor. As you pass your mouse over different elements, it will, in theory, pop up. It's going to do some weird popping up things, like it's going to pop up all your menus. You can't actually navigate to your calendar at this point because we are in the visual builder. But it's going to show you all of these. But that also means that these things pop up and they sometimes get in your way of trying to access something that you're trying to edit. Here it's showing us the blue section. And it's very obvious where this blue section is right at this moment. If I needed to add a row to my section, this is the point where I would come in and click on editing the section. Remember, a section is a container that contains multiple rows. So the only thing that you really are going to be accessing from a section, for the most part, is going to be adding more rows within your section. You can do this a couple of different ways, but mainly you click on this one gear up here, and we have our section settings. The whole section could link to something. And this is going to give us the, different options, admin labels. Again, let me link this, you can put a background in your section. We're not doing this. What I do want to show you though is how this admin label relates back to our backend editor on a section. So if you want to have a better view, and I'm going to go back to, let's see if I can do, I want to see if it's going to let me do this and not mess me up. Okay. Loading, loading, loading. So this is the section we're looking at the front end right now. We have the row and we have the featured posts. Notice it just says section. It's just called section, which is the generic term. If you're on this and you want to be very specific about what the section is for your own navigation purposes, you can give it a name. So this might be the front page slider. We'll just call it that. That gives me a verbal or a written explanation of what is appearing here. And if I refresh this, loading, loading. Oh, because I didn't save it here. Shame on me. Always save your work. And just a reminder, thank you, Trevor, for finding this. And I've been using it a ton. If you are working on your page, Control S actually works to save your page. So you do not have to come down here and find the little purple box and open up the save. You will get you can just hit Control S and it will save it. Now let me see if this does what I wanted it to do. There. Now I have the title front page slider on this section, and I have a better navigation tool for being able to see on the back end what it is that I'm editing on the front end. More person. So that's my section. The next trick that we need to try to get to is to be able to edit the row and the module. I have a hard time sometimes with the mouse control getting the right row and the right module thing that I want to edit to pop up. Again, if you are comfortable going back and forth between the front and the back end, it sometimes helps to be like, oh, okay, there's only one module underneath this front page slider. There's one row and one module. When I'm trying to get everything to pop up, I at least know what I'm aiming for. I know that I'm looking for one row and I'm looking for one module within that piece. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say this. Divi gives you a lot of different ways to do things to do the same thing. And some of this is picking what you're most comfortable with. And some of this is just knowing that there are different options available to you. Anytime you see a plus, you can add something new. So add a new section, add a new row, add a new module. When we add a new row, it is going to ask you how you want that row to break up. So remember, we have our large section, our section container that can contain multiple rows. And that row is going to be broken down to contain multiple modules. So it's blue contains multiple greens and greens contains multiple blacks. And you can decide how many of those you want. And you can change it midstream. If you're like, oh, I don't really know, I think I want 3 elements, but I maybe want 4, you can start with 4 elements in your row, 4 different modules, and you can change it back to 3, you can change it to 2, you can change that down the road. Just pick one to start. And so you're going to pick a size, and it's going to create now suddenly I have a new row inside of this inside of the blue box, and it has 4 options for adding 4 modules within that row, and they're all spaced evenly. If I wanted to change the layout and have them have 3 things, but oops, I just added a new one. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to do it that way. See, this is how I get going. And okay, if I wanted to change it, I would come back to that green and pick the layout, and then I could have an offset with one large one and then some smaller ones off to this side. You can add columns. This is where it's going to get confusing. You can add the columns right away within it. You really just need to slow down until you get comfortable and figure out what it is you want. Have a picture in your head first. How many pictures do I have that I need to add to my webpage? I have 3. Do I want 1 larger and do I want 2 smaller? Do I want them all 3 to be the same size? Think through this before you start adding pieces to your elements to your website. I really advise you to take it slow, because it's very easy to click on something and just end up adding the wrong thing and feel like all of a sudden you're lost and you don't really know what's happening. We don't really have anything added here yet, but I'm going to go ahead and save. And I am going to, once it saves, I'm going to refresh the back end. And coming. So we have our front page slider that we just labeled the section. We have the row 1, which contains the featured posts element. And now we have our new row, and we don't have any elements assigned to it. We don't have any modules assigned yet, but they're here ready to be added. If you're on the back side, again, you can click on that. And this is where it's sometimes easier without all the things popping up all over the place. If you just want to get the structure down, sometimes it's easier to do it on the back end where everything just stays stationary and doesn't move around. And you can pick the layout you want for your row and your different elements on the back end. And then you can come on the front end and actually start doing some adding. Yep, Trevor's like, I like to sketch my web page on paper first. That's always a really kind of good idea, to get that visual in your head of what it is that you really want this to look like, what information goes where, and then you can kind of back up and get in there and build that structure in, and then start adding the elements. I have the bad habit of starting with, like, I just need to throw this thing in here and then start throwing it in, put in my image, and then realize that, oh, that's not going to be the right size. That's not going to be the right place. I need to like take it and move it around. And it's a really good way to get in trouble, because Divi is really nice and really helpful in the sense that you can move things around. If you want to do it and you're contemplating it, on the front end builder, you have the ability to click within this green, right where my arrows are showing the 2 things, and I can start dragging things around. But that's also a really good way to end up having things slide around out of your control. Move slow. Another thing you can do within Divi, that on the Divi front end builder, that can be both an advantage and frustrating, is if you can get your mouse onto the right line, you can change the height of something, and sometimes it won't let you change the width because it's right now it's set to the maximum screen size, but you can do some adjusting. Again, it takes mouse control, it takes managing how you know, like, it's very easy to be like doing this and all of a sudden, bloop, you've accidentally tried to add another row. So the best advice I give you with Divi is just give yourself 5 minutes to breathe, to click on it, and to move things very carefully. Now let's talk very quickly about, or not very quickly, let's talk next about adding an module. The module is what actually contains all of the content on your website. A row and a section are just a way of organizing the content. The module is what actually holds the content. So what do I mean by content? An example of this slider, this post slider is content. This image for Ancestry, Novelist Plus, Gale Courses, Libby, these are content. This text, what can we help you with, is content. This button here, View All Resources, is an example of content. A module is what gives us the option for adding content to our page. And when you click on that module, the plus button, it is going to open up a menu for inserting your module. There are a variety of options under this menu. They're in alphabetical order. So if you're trying to find a specific one, you can try to guess what it might be named and take it from there. The ones we are probably going to use the vast majority of the time will be the image module. And this is where you just add an image or a picture. And under that image module, you can resize this also if you need a little more space for this. You have your image, which you would select by clicking on this gear icon. And that's going to open up your media library. And because I just love using myself, I am going to add my own picture to this image module right there. And then if I wanted this to link to something, this is where I would add my link to my image. So when I click on my face in my future, in the future things, we are going to go to let's do leanwisconsin.org/website service. And I want this one to open in a new tab so that my individual can come back and look at the WVLS page when they are done. I can change the background color of my module. Let's go with this lovely, very, very bright. Let's go with purple, something that's completely not it. And I can add that admin label. And this is, we'll do Erica's website services. A brief aside on admin labels. A reason that they are important beyond your own personal organizational purposes. When we talk about accessibility in libraries, a lot of times we're talking about getting in the front door. We're talking about being able to reach a shelf to get a book. We're talking about those physical accessibility pieces that we often think about. Website accessibility is also a very important element of making sure that all users of all abilities and all skill levels are able to access our resources. When we use resources like screen readers and other tools for low vision or other sorts of tools for accessing websites in non-visual ways, this is where the text labels, admin labels, captions, alternate image text, these are going to be important because they are often elements that a screen reader looks for behind the scenes in order to interpret the information on our website for users who are not able to or don't want to engage with our website in a visual way. Two examples of this, it might be like an individual who has low vision or no vision, and they're using a verbal screen reader telling them what the resources are. It may also be in the future, Alexa, and somebody says, Alexa, does the Dummer Library in Three Lakes open at 9 a.m.? And Alexa is going to look at the web page and interpret the information on the web page and speak it back to our user. So keeping in mind that textual content for a visual image is still important, not only for your own organization, but also for accessibility. So taking that little extra. So now you see we've got this image block, and actually I'm going to adjust. See, this is why I don't like Divi. Okay, I want to adjust the stuff on the section, but I can't get to the gear icon because it's buried underneath the other icon. But that's what Divi does. And sometimes it's good to be on the back end because you can't get to the thing because it's layered stuff on the front end by trying to do too many things. Okay, soapbox aside. So the content is there, the link is there, the background is there, but I want my image to be centered. So under design in the image settings module, you will see that there is alignment, and I want to have a centered alignment there. We can go into a ton of things with sizing, spacing, borders, and whatnot. We're not doing that today. That's a thing for another time. But now I'm in the middle of this module. And let's say that I want to add another module, and we'll make this one a text module. So I'm going to scroll down here to find the text module. And this is giving me notice that I have the text editor box right here, which is similar to what you would see if you were writing a post. But then you have your visual editor out here that is showing you what it will look like on the web page itself. Of note, Divi gives you a couple of options, and there are pros and cons to each. You can edit within this editor piece here, but look, the font on this is not the same as the font on the web page. So you already have one big difference right there. Any of your formatting may or may not appear on this. And then you had the other elements like adding a link and background and admin information. So visit our website tutorial page for more information. And then actually I should show you, let's just misspell it for a second, on building and managing your website. There, let's see what it does for editing. Oh, text. Oh, Erica can't spell. Are we shocked? Nope, not at all. Sometimes this will pull up a spell checker. Sometimes it won't. Obviously right now it's not. I was hoping it would today, but not in the mood. I can add the link to the Lean Wisconsin page back in. So their link URL, this one again, I wanted to open a new page. I still want that. Let's go with a garish blue this time. And you see it's all changing for me over here. We're getting our visual over here. You see that the text is not the same font as in our editor, but it is the same font as our theme, as that's already been set for our web page over here. I want this to show up better, so I'm going to change my text color to white. Oops, I have to remember to highlight this and change it to white. And I want it to be centered. And I could play with some more things, but I'm not going to go too far. Design and advanced and other pieces like that. And I'm going to save those changes. So my example modules here, I have an image module and I have a text module. They are both going to link out to another web page. And it did just automatically save for me, but I can hit Control S or I can hit save down here. When you are in the Divi builder, in the front end builder, it also gives you an option. If you look down in the I'm going to say this because on this screen, it's in the far left corner. Sometimes the Divi builder is customizable so that these may not all appear in the same place on your screen as mine. Just know that somewhere at the bottom or on the side, there will be this option, but there is a tablet view and a phone view. Again, we talk about accessibility and access to websites. The other thing to be thinking about is how the websites are accessed by individuals using phones and tablets. And you want to make sure that the changes that you make to your page are going to be viewable by somebody. So Divi has this for you that you can just view what it would look like. Right now, this is on a tablet. Notice it stacks these two elements that were horizontal on the Divi desktop page. Now they're vertical. And it starts to squish up our slider a little bit, and then it does some stacking. If I come up to click on the phone view, Now this is even more. And what it's done with the slider is it's taken the picture off, and we just have the text, and it's made some adaptations with our with the sizing and everything. So this is a responsive theme. It takes it and it changes it and adapts it to the size of the screen that it's being displayed on. You can edit within any of those views as well. Just be warned that all of the things sometimes slide around, and getting the thing to pop up that you wanted to pop up. Let's say I was looking at this and I didn't like the distribution of the rows. I can again come up to this row, and if I wanted to make it 2 even blocks, I can click on that and it'll show me right away what it looks like. If I wanted to make it add a third element, it's going to automatically slide that one over for me. If I wanted these in a different order and I wanted a block here, let's play with another. Let me find my list here. Let's see. Image, blog, post slide, or gallery. These are the ones that were most likely going to be used. The post slider is going to reference, and we'll probably do a whole session on just on Divi modules at some point. The post slider is going to bring up, if you want, let's say 3 posts, and we want them all from the technology category. If any of them have been added, I don't even know if we have any. Yep, we do have one that was added for technology. This will now create a post slider of content that is from our category marked technology. And we have my picture, our website tutorial page, and then anything that was added in the technology post and is going to slide through this. Let's say I actually wanted the post slider first on this. I can click and drag that module over, and it's going to drop it here, and notice it'll stack it. It'll give you another way of adding elements within this so that you can have 2 modules on top of each other and maybe try to slide. But oh gosh, I'm sliding all over the place. Where did I go? Where did I go? Now my row is being slid around, and now my row just went down here. This is why you need to go slow with the front end building. And sometimes you save your work and you come back to the back end. Let this refresh. Refresh. And I want this Erica's website services. Oh, look, it's not even the most updated version. Sometimes it doesn't quite catch the updates, and working on the 2 sides can get it confused, but if you go slow and you do your one thing at a time, not like me, who's usually trying to multitask and do 6 things so I can get it done and over with. I see that I've got my featured posts and my website services are down below here. I want this back up, and I can click and drag on the little corners here, and very cleanly, maybe, come on, let's say that, and then it doesn't want to do it. Okay, I'm going to click and drag that down. Now I've got the website services back up top, and I can move. I've got all of these different places to add different modules on the back end. I'm going to move that over to the far side. So we'll have this. If I hit update here, I'm just going to exit the visual builder for a second. And now I have my post slider, I have my text box, and I have my picture, which happens to link out into a new website back to Arlene, Wisconsin services. Not very pretty, but we weren't going for pretty today. Today we're going for what the conceptual functions are. Does anybody have thoughts or questions on any of that, or an example from your website that is causing you pain? Is this all making sense, or is this just making your eyes cross?
Making sense.
Okay. Picking up a few tips and tricks. Tell me if I should stop while I'm ahead, or do you want to see, do you want me to go back? Okay, maybe I should do a poll. Ooh, can I do a poll? Can I create one? Because then I can ask you guys. Okay. Come on. Review or okay, here's your poll is, oh, should we go back and review what we've seen, or should we do some advanced features? And we're going to go with this, and let me see if I can deploy this. Launch. Okay, I've launched a poll. Tell me if we want to go back and review what we've just looked at, or do you want me to forge ahead and give you some advanced pieces? And then I'll answer Trevor's question in a second. Okay, got 8 answers. Eight of 11 people. I'll give you 2 more seconds to participate, and then we'll end our poll. Okay, looks unanimous. Everybody who voted says, let's look at some advanced features. Perfect. Okay, know that you're keeping up with us. I am going to, Trevor puts in chat, if I want an image and a text next to it in the past, I would do a table with 2 columns, but it doesn't resize well. What should we do? A row with 2 modules? I know exactly what you're talking about. Let's actually look at doing something like that, creating a table within, because back in the early days of WordPress and building without responsive websites, I did a lot of this myself. So I actually know exactly what you mean. Let's see. Oh, I need to cross out of there a second. I'm gonna go back into, let's just do our edit page. I'm just gonna leave it exit. Yeah, we're not restoring the backup because we're not going to play with this much more. If I were to create a text box here. So if you have a text module that we are creating, there is an option to create a table. And this is pretty much before we had the Divi editor. This is what we had to use if we wanted to have anything next to each other rather than stacked on top of it. There wasn't as much, there were a few themes that gave you some flexibility, but this is how we did a lot of things. So you would actually create a table within your module box and put this is me. And in this one, let's see, we could add media. And let's see, I've already added myself once, so let's see. This is not me. Let's go with this. We'll just put Rob Swearingen in here because this is Rob. So our representative in the Northwoods just had his picture retaken for the and it's just going to put it in the thumbnail right now for reasons I can't explain for the moment because I was struggling with this earlier, but I'm just going to go with it. Update this and view page. Okay, so what you did is you created a table with 2 spaces and you had the text box and you had the photo. And as was noted, it doesn't always resize well. It's not super responsive to the different themes. So yes, putting 2 modules side by side the way I did here, adding a text module that is independent of the image module is probably going to be your better bet in 90% of the cases, just to see how they respond, because it may or may not lay out nicely within that. You're just going to have more reliable results when you use separate module, a separate text module and a separate image module, rather than trying to control what's going to happen with text and images in a table. Let's see. I'm going to delete this row because as much fun as I've had with it, it's really pretty ugly. So we're just going to click delete, and now suddenly we're back to just having this slider. Something I want to point out on this page, and you may have some of you may have this on your website as well. Notice how this section right here is grayed out and not super bright. This actually has been hidden. So if we were to look at, let me just view this page. When we look at the live version of this page, unless I didn't save my work yet. Erica didn't save her work. This is how we find out. There, okay, saved our work. When I look at what the public is seeing, we have view all resources, tell your library love story, and our quotes. But if I look here underneath view all resources, there is, can we help you find, what can we help you find, request books, and a search the catalog. That is not showing up on our public site. And the reason this is not showing up on our public site is because this has been hidden. It has been made invisible on our to the public on our backend builder. If I were wanting to make this visible again, I click on this and I see it's all kind of grayed out here. Come into the gearbox and come to design, or sorry, advanced. Under advanced is visibility. And notice that this one, when I click on the visibility dropdown, I have disable on phone, tablet, and desktop. If I uncheck these, it will suddenly turn into that bright color right here. And if I save my work and refresh my page, now I have this back on my website. This might be a trick. I caution you to do it sparingly, because sometimes you're going to end up with too much clutter. But if you have something that comes up on a routine basis, like summer reading, and you have it on your home page, but you don't want it there all year round, you can come in to that row that you want to edit. And you don't want to delete it. You don't want to change it too much. It comes up once a year, twice a year. Maybe it's a different reading program or something. And you don't want to necessarily delete it and have to recreate it. But you can click on the gear icon for that row or for that section. And this is actually an advanced section. And we'll talk about that in just half a second too. Disable on, and you can disable it on all of these and click the checkbox. And now that will go away until the next time you want to reactivate it for a program or event. One piece that I should quick caution you about on this is the train just left the station, because I just wanted to get back to this special section piece. But again, if you're going to use the visibility thing, if you find, that's what it was. If you find somebody coming to you and saying, I can't find X on your website, and you're like, but it's right there, I see it on my desktop. Double check how they're accessing it on your website, because they may be looking at it on a phone or a tablet, and for whatever reason, that section may have gotten disabled on a phone or tablet, but still be visible on the desktop. So that's the first thing I do, is if somebody comes and says, I can't access a page or I can't access a resource, where is it? It's not here. Go in and check that for that thing, and double check that it is able to be viewed on all of those different resources or different tools, the phone and tablet and desktop methods. One thing I do the very last thing as far as advanced pieces go, this is a different kind of section. You see it's green rather than the typical blue. This is a type of section that will allow different formats of layouts. And it's sort of going to be a whole other class as to how you get to it. But you can create partial rows and half rows instead of having to add entire and instead of having to add different rows. I don't have a really great example of this up right now, and I don't even know why she used a special section for it in building the site in the first place. But at some point down the road, we'll do a quick tutorial on special sections and different arrangements of modules. But I think you've got enough resources for modules right at this point that you should be able to build a lot of things on your own without needing special sections. Hey, with that, we are at 10:59, and I promised everybody that we would get through this in an hour. So I will save my work here. Again, remember always to Control S or save. We'll talk about exporting and importing modules and pages in a future session. That'll be the next thing we get to. But this is really your Divi 101 and what the builder is supposed to do and how it works. And I really appreciate everybody coming along today. Quick reminder, I'm going to stop recording, and then I will give you a couple of updates on the next thing. So let me stop my recording.